Okay, welcome everybody. This is to today's webinar. Tonight's topic is actually my favorite one. It's actually the core message of the SYB brand, and it's one that I talk about all the time in interviews and ebooks. But then I realized I'd never actually given it as a webinar, which is why I decided to do it today. But first, quickly, I'm going to be running this a little differently than my past webinars. I am here live right now, but I pre-recorded the presentation part of the webinar. The idea is that it makes it easier for me to interact with all of you through the chat and Q&A pod. Then when that's done, I'll be right here to answer all of your questions. I tried this actually for my last webinar in January, and it worked. I thought it went really well, and the reception was pretty good. So I'm trying it again. So if you have any questions while you're watching the presentation, I'm going to ask that you please post them into the Q&A pod. That's the question and answer pod. This is separate from the chat pod. And that way, when the presentation's over and I get to the questions, I'll know they'll all be in the Q&A pod. If they're in the chat pod, I'm almost certainly going to miss them. Okay, so let's get into it. Welcome everyone to the SYB webinar, The Best EMF Protection is Free. I'm R. Blank. I'm the CEO of Shield Your Body, the host of the Healthier Tech podcast, and formerly served as faculty at the University of Southern California School of Engineering. Along with my father, Dr. Martin Blank, I co-authored Overpowered on the Science of EMF Health Effects, and this follows a 20-year career in software engineering. Inspired by the life's work of my father, I started SYB in 2012 with the mission of making technology safer for you and your loved ones by reducing your exposure to harmful EMF radiation. Since you're here for this webinar, you already know there are a ton of sources of EMF radiation, and it just keeps growing. It's no longer just cell phones and Wi-Fi. These days, we also have Bluetooth, wireless thermostats, smart speakers, wireless chargers, smart refrigerators. EMF is everywhere. I know that the growing levels of EMF in our environment can make you feel helpless, that there's nothing you can do to protect yourself. I speak with people every day who feel the same way. But I have some good news for you, because even if you live in an area that's extremely polluted by EMF, what you do with your own devices and at home matters a lot. That's why I always tell people the best EMF protection is free. In my decade of experience with EMF protection, I found a few great techniques that can help make a huge reduction in your exposure to EMF and keep you and your family safer from these modern dangers. In this webinar, I'm going to show you 5 of the biggest sources of EMF in your life and what you can do to protect yourself for free. What's even better, once you learn these techniques, you'll figure out even more of them to do by yourself. Because as you'll see, you don't need to give up technology or invest tons of money in EMF protection to make a big difference in your lives and in the lives of your friends, family, and colleagues. And you can start right now. It all comes down to 2 key rules. Number 1 is to minimize your use of EMF generating technologies. And number 2 is to maximize the distance between your body and the EMF generating tech when you do use them. Let's start with rule 1, to minimize your use of devices that emit EMF radiation. Now, this is quite simple and obvious. After all, the best way to minimize your exposures is to minimize your use of the tools that generate these exposures. In other words, reduce how much of that tech you use and surround yourself with. It's as simple as it sounds. Now, of course, we are all dependent on, or in some cases addicted to, our modern technology that is a source of so much of our EMF radiation exposures. So how are you supposed to minimize your use of EMF-emitting devices without sacrificing your enjoyment of them or the benefit you get from them? Well, it turns out there are a lot of ways that you can accomplish this important goal without sacrificing your enjoyment and benefit from modern technology. And I'll give you some good and specific examples. But before we do that, I want to explain the second rule. It's true that you can't stop modern technology from emitting EMF radiation and still have that technology work. But there's something about that radiation that you might not realize. Not only does EMF radiation get weaker with distance, it actually diminishes in power exponentially with distance. I wanted to give you a little demonstration of this. Watch as the meter readings increase as I approach this smart wireless charging cooktop. And look at the difference that just a few inches make. So you can see for yourself in that video that each additional inch, even millimeter of distance that you put between yourself and the source of the EMF will have a big impact on your exposure. Literally every inch matters when it comes to your EMF exposure. This is why I say it's what you do with the tech that's closest to you and that's most in your control that can matter the most to reducing your exposure to this harmful radiation. So to reduce your EMF exposure, you want to maximize the distance between your body and your tech when it's in use. Now, once you start thinking about these two key rules, you'll realize that there are a ton of ways to implement them in your life. It's about considering what changes you are most willing to make. Which ones are the easiest for you to do? Those are the ones that are going to have the biggest impact because you'll actually stick with them. We'll start here with a few examples. The top 5 tips I give to people to put these two key rules to use, to start protecting yourself and your loved ones from exposure to EMF from some of the biggest sources of this radiation in our daily lives. Despite the growing number of sources of EMF, there's one source that's likely your biggest source of exposure. And that's when you keep your cell phone in your pocket or your bra directly against your body. Keep your cell phone away from your body. That's a direct quote from Dr. Linda Birnbaum. And she's not just any doctor. She's a toxicologist and a microbiologist and the former director of the National Institute for Environmental Health Sciences, as well as the U.S. National Toxicology Program. Why is she so concerned? Well, I have another webinar specifically on this topic called Where Do You Carry Your Phone? But without getting into all the details that you can find in that extended webinar, as I mentioned at the top, EMF exposure, like from cell phones, has been linked to numerous negative health effects. When it comes to the risks of carrying your phone on your body, we zoom in on a select few. That is male infertility and subfertility, female fertility, miscarriage risk, birth defects, breast cancer, and erectile dysfunction. But these are just a sampling of some of the known health risks of EMF exposure. And so why is carrying your phone in your pocket such a big source and one that you really need to focus on? Well, a lot of people don't even realize that cell phone manufacturers warn you not to keep your cell phone in your pocket or your bra. Because if you do, your exposure can exceed legal limits, which isn't surprising if you remember how much distance plays a role in the strength of your exposure. When the phone is in your pocket, there is zero distance. Now, we often talk about the cell phone connection, but it's important to also remember your phone is actually multiple sources of EMF. You have the cell phone, then you have the cell data, then you have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and NFC, which is the technology used for things like Apple Pay and Google Pay. And this is even more important because we tend to carry our phones for extended periods, often hours at a time, often every day. So not only can you get an illegal dose of EMF from that phone in your pocket or your bra, it's also a really extended one. And that's why carrying your phone in your pocket or your bra can be one of the biggest, if not the single biggest, source of your EMF exposure. The best solution is to stop carrying your phone in your pocket or your bra, or turn it into airplane mode when you do. It will instantly slash your personal EMF exposure. It costs you absolutely no money, and you can start right now. This tip is so important, and I encourage you to check out the other webinar on the Shield Your Body website. Now, like cell phones and almost all modern wireless devices, laptops also emit electromagnetic radiation. There are 2 types of EMF emitted by your laptop. There's radio frequency, which is also called RF. This is the type of EMF radiation our laptops use to communicate wirelessly. It's also the same type of radiation that your cell phone emits. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections are 2 very common sources of RF from your laptop. Then there's low frequency, And this is the kind of EMF that comes off of power lines, electrical appliances, as well as your laptop, especially when it's plugged in and running off of AC power. Both radio frequency and low frequency have been shown to cause numerous negative health effects, and the World Health Organization lists both types as Class 2B carcinogens. And the point is, laptops are a really big source of powerful levels of both types of this harmful radiation. And when your laptop is in your lap, you are getting a maximum possible dose of EMF that your laptop has to give. In fact, if you read the fine print, you'll see some manufacturers actually admit this. For example, if you read the manual for some Dell laptops, they'll say that you need to keep the laptop, again, they're calling it a laptop, you need to keep this laptop at least 20 centimeters from your lap. That's almost 8 inches. The best solution is to stop using your laptop in your lap. Always use it on a table or a desk instead. It'll instantly slash your personal EMF exposure. It costs you absolutely no money, and you can start right now. Tip number 3 is don't sleep with your phone. As I already discussed, cell phones are a huge source of EMF. Now, sometimes we need to use our phones, but why expose yourself to all that radiation when you're not even using your phone? When you sleep with your phone, you're dosing your entire body with EMF radiation all night long for an average of 6 to 9 hours each and every day, and with absolutely no benefit to yourself because you're not using the phone. Unfortunately, it turns out that a lot of us do sleep with our phones. A 2010 Pew Research study found that nearly all young adults between the ages of 18 and 29 make sure their phones are never too far away at night. Fully 90% sleep with their cell phone on or right next to their bed. That's 9 out of every 10 Americans aged 18 to 29 sleep with their phone in or next to their bed. That same study found that approximately 7 in 10 Americans overall, that is of all ages, sleep with their phone. Those are huge numbers, and that was in 2010 when cell phone ownership wasn't as common as it is today. And cell phone data plans weren't as generous as they are today. Research suggests that cell phone radiation can interfere with your sleep, which makes the argument for keeping your phone farther away from you while you sleep more compelling. I pull this quote not because these are doctors or scientists or EMF advocates, but because this is in CNET, a tech industry journal, is giving you this warning. The instant, easy, and obvious solution is to stop sleeping with your phone or to turn it into airplane mode while you're asleep. Alternatively, you could keep your phone on, but as far away from you as possible, like across the room instead of on your nightstand. This, like the other tips, will instantly slash your personal EMF exposure. It costs you absolutely no money, and you can start right now. My 4th tip is to not use wireless earbuds. Wireless earbuds are increasingly popular. Many phones don't even come with headset jacks anymore. Wireless earbuds use Bluetooth, which is a type of EMF radiation just like what your cell phone emits and just like you use in a Wi-Fi router. Now, in general, Bluetooth radiation is less powerful than cell phone radiation. So from that very limited perspective, it can technically be a bit safer than holding a phone up to your head. But then you have to remember 2 key facts. Wireless headsets go in both ears, so you're getting 2 exposures on both sides of your head. And because they are so convenient and comfortable, many people keep these earbuds in their ears for hours at a time, much longer than you would hold a phone up there. This leads to significant additional doses of radiation. And the exposures are right in your ears. That's directly next to your brain in a location where your skull does not have any of the natural, your brain does not have any of the natural shielding that your skull provides. Because there's a hole in your skull for your ear to actually work. There isn't even any research on what it could be doing to the brain, let alone regulation to limit the potential effects. Can't imagine this possibly being all that great for you. That's according to Dr. Joel Moskowitz from UC Berkeley. So stop using wireless earbuds. Instead, use a wired headset or speakerphone mode. This will instantly make a huge reduction in your EMF exposure. Now, it's the 5th tip. Don't buy smart tech you don't need. New technology is being developed and released to consumers at such a fast rate. The number of new smart devices that you can buy, it's mind-boggling. I've seen, believe it or not, I mean, there's smart hairbrushes, smart toothbrushes, there's even a smart tampon on the market. Now, what about the hidden dangers and risks of all of this new smart tech? It can be easy to ignore, but the fact is that each and every one of these new smart devices emits EMF radiation. Now, I'll be the first to admit that some of this tech is not just nifty and cool, it can be incredibly useful too. But the fact is, each additional piece of smart tech you buy comes with a cost. Not just a dollar cost to your wallet, but a cost of an increased risk to your health through increased exposure to EMF radiation. Now, rather than tell you a quote from an expert, I'm going to do a little show and tell. Here's a video I took measuring the emissions from a Belkin smart speaker. These levels are equivalent to that of a cell phone, except it's a cell phone that's on 24/7 in your living room or your kitchen or your bedroom. Even more shocking, here are the readings I took from a smart mirror. It's supposed to make it easier somehow to apply your makeup, which is admittedly not a problem that I have. But watch as the tri-field is actually maxed out. It's literally off the charts high on a product you're intended to stand right in front of. Now keep in mind, not only do these examples have high levels of EMF emissions, these are also additive to your existing exposures, meaning they are in addition to your existing cell phone and Wi-Fi and everything else in your life that emits EMF. And it can be easy to ignore the fact that a whole lot of this stuff has absolutely no regulations governing how much EMF it can emit. So only get smart tech if it's really actually useful and adds some value to your life. Don't just buy smart tech because that's what they want to sell you or because it looks cool and nifty. So there you have it, 5 of my top EMF protection tips, all of which are based on the 2 key rules of EMF protection and are completely free to use. So even as the number of cell towers continues to grow and smart meters continue to roll out, you still have a tremendous amount of control over your exposure to EMF radiation. And reducing your exposure to EMF is the single most effective way to protect yourself from it. Now, if the best EMF protection is free, why do I invest so much time and resources in creating EMF protection products? Well, while the best EMF protection is free, and there's nothing more effective than reducing your exposure in the first place, EMF protection products, good ones, laboratory tested ones, like the ones I make and sell, play an important role in your EMF defense. Let me give you a few examples. As I've explained, carrying your phone in your pocket or your bra can be one of your largest sources of EMF exposure. And the best solution is to stop carrying your phone in your pocket or your bra or to put it into airplane mode. This is a quick, free, and incredibly effective solution. But many people still carry their phones in their pockets. It's just so convenient. And sometimes there's no practical alternative. You need your phone on you and there's nowhere else to carry it. And that's why I've created my products like the SYB Phone Pouch and Pouch Deluxe. These products make it safer to carry your phone by deflecting radiation away from your body. These products work on 5G, 4G, LTE, 3G, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. They shield on one side only, the side between your device and your body, so it protects you without interfering with phone reception, function, or battery life. And it works anywhere that you go. Another example, I already mentioned you should never use your laptop in your lap. This is a quick and free solution. You can do it instantly and it costs you no money. But for some of us, we like using our laptop in our lap. It's convenient. Maybe we're traveling and don't have a desk. Or maybe we like curling up in our favorite easy chair to write an email on our computer. My SYB laptop pad makes it safer to use your laptop by deflecting radiation away from your lap and reproductive organs. With triple shielding power, my laptop pad protects you from wireless radiation, low-frequency radiation, and heat emissions. Its convenient design is thin and portable, so you can bring it wherever you go, while featuring an anti-slip grip. And it's super easy to clean with a rag or paper towel. Another of my top tips was to stop sleeping with your phone or to turn it into airplane mode while you are asleep. But some of us need to sleep with our phones on and nearby. Whether it's for work or if we're on call, we don't have the option. My SYB picture frame makes a great nighttime sleep guard against cell phone EMF radiation. Just put the frame on your nightstand and put your phone behind the frame. That's it. Now you can sleep with your phone on and nearby and reduce your exposure to your phone's nighttime EMF radiation. As I've explained, it's really important to stop using wireless earbuds. But what should you do instead? Well, as I said, speakerphone is great unless you're in public and there's a lot of noise. And what about when you want to listen to music or watch Netflix? This is why you want to use a wired headset. Now, I want to be very clear. Using a wired headset is much, much safer than using wireless earbuds or holding your phone up to your head. But even so, wired headsets, precisely because they contain wire, can conduct straight EMF radiation from your phone up into your ear canal. Air tubes are a great solution unless you care about sound quality, because even the best air tube anti-radiation headsets sacrifice a lot on sound quality. And that's why we have the SYB Hard, Headset Anti-Radiation Device. The Hard turns any headset into an anti-radiation headset, so you can use it on your favorite headsets. Even better, it actually improves your audio quality by filtering out this EMF interference. Using the Hard can make your wired headset even safer. And finally, the fifth example. As I said before, I strongly recommend thinking twice about purchasing any new smart tech. But sometimes the use of smart tech isn't even up to us, like when your power company installs a smart meter on your home. That's why we created the SYB poster frame liner. Put it in any picture or poster frame, and then hang it on the wall where you want to create the shielding. It's a great and practically invisible way to shield your body with art from EMF radiation from smart devices like smart meters, and no one will even know that it's there. As I've explained, the best EMF protection is free. The best way to reduce your exposure to EMF radiation is to eliminate or minimize your exposures in the first place. But sometimes that's not possible, which is why I've created a whole line of products, like the ones I just showed you, specifically designed to reduce your exposure to harmful EMF radiation. All of these products are laboratory tested to demonstrate their power and efficacy. At SYB, we take our product claims very seriously, and we want our customers like you to know that, which is why we have had our safer body shielding technology tested at multiple independent laboratories around the world to show you that our shielding technology shields up to 99% of EMF radiation, including 5G. And unlike other companies, this report includes results for low-frequency EMF, such as from power lines and AC appliances, as well as the radio frequency from wireless communication. And I just want to highlight, for those of you who don't already know, any order of my products from my website includes a lifetime warranty, no questions asked 30-day returns, and free shipping on all orders over $100 in North America and Europe. It's a risk-free decision. We also pride ourselves on our outstanding level of customer service. We strive to ensure every customer is completely satisfied with their purchase and their entire experience with SYB, which you can see noted in the reviews on our website. And you can find all of this information and all of my products at shieldyourbody.com. Okay, so before going to QA, there's actually one more point I wanted to make, and I decided to add it in at the last minute. As you've seen today, there are a lot of things you can do to reduce your exposure for free just by changing your behavior. And good lab-tested EMF protection products also play an important role in reducing your exposure. But there is no living without EMF exposure today, not anymore, which is why I want to highlight the importance of nutrition and exercise. Having a healthy lifestyle is a really important defense against damage from EMF, as well as other environmental toxins. The healthier you live, the healthier you will be, even in the face of the onslaught of EMF. And SYB has some really great content on this, starting with the links that you see on the screen, which I'm about to paste into the chat pod for you. Okay. So before getting into Q&A, as promised for everyone attending live tonight, I'm offering all of you a 25% discount. This is store-wide on my entire catalog. This is through midnight tonight Pacific time. So you just go to shieldyourbody.com and then enter the code BEST25 at checkout. If you're watching the replay, this code will not work. This is just for those of you who are watching live tonight. So with that, let me check out what is going on in the Q&A pod. Wow, okay, there's a fair amount going on in the Q&A pod. Okay, so Melissa asks, my eyes are very sensitive to the phone and computer. What are some ways I can support them? I mean, from a protection standpoint, I would recommend starting with blue light glasses. We make those. I can show you where they are. So if you, let me move this over here. So if you go to our store and then you go to, we have them under apparel, and then you scroll down, they're here. So we have the regular blue light glasses, and then we have the clip-ons that would fit over your prescription lenses. And these are designed for all day use. There are some that are stronger that we don't sell. And those are really for people who you can't work with them all day. They're really for people who are trying to prepare for going to bed at night. Ours are designed as all day blue lights. And they definitely help reduce eye strain. So that is what I would recommend in terms of eye protection. Thank you very much for your question, Melissa. Okay. Jamie, who I believe dropped out earlier, asks if I have any knowledge or experience with MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, and EMF. And Jamie, unfortunately, the answer there is no. I do not have any knowledge of that. Okay. Jackie asks, is EMF exposure and or dirty electricity a concern with having solar panels on your home? If so, how can we protect ourselves from this type of EMF exposure? Great question. I'm going to paste these links. I have some links. I saw that question come in during the recording, so I prepared some links. The answer is yes. It's not just solar. It's any form of green energy. Anything where you're charging batteries and then running off of the batteries, or even if you're not charging batteries with solar, you still need an inverter. And any system that requires an inverter be put in, that is going to significantly increase the amount of dirty electricity that you have. We have a lot of content on that. We had a whole webinar about it and then a couple of articles. We have some episodes coming out actually on the Healthier Tech podcast to dive deeper into this. The answer is this can be fixed or at least significantly improved using dirty electricity filters. And we, again, talk about that in the third article that I posted there. That's shieldyourbody.com/dirty-electricity. Great question. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, Denise asks, please discuss the newer types of credit cards, the chip version that has to be inserted and the the contactless payment. What EMFs do these emit? Is this constant? Is this measurable? How can we block it? Any other advice? So my understanding, and I don't know a heck of a lot about this, but that type of chip is what's called passive, which means they are not actually a source of EMF. What is a source of EMF is the card reader, right? So the card reader will be emitting EMF, and it will then be able to detect the chip in your card and then, process your payment. But the chip itself in your card, I do not believe is a source of EMF because there's no power supply in your credit card. So that is, so there's no reason that you need to worry, as far as I know, about EMF from credit cards. The one thing that, and this isn't really what we focus on here, but the one thing that people are worried about with those types of chips is people stealing your credit card information using scanners. And so if you want, you can find these RFID sheaths for your credit cards, and that would be how you would want to protect protect them. But that's not about your health. It's about your financial health and your identity health. Thank you. Okay, Denise also asked, what types of EMF are emitted by motion sensing exterior lights that are powered by electric wires and turn on when a car or someone goes by, etc.? Well, I mean, any light is going to be a source of EMF on its own, whether it's motion sensor or just a regular old light. If you're talking about the older style of incandescents, those actually emit a fair amount. I mean, how do I? So 90% of that is heat, and 10% of it is actually the illumination. But because it's running, on AC power, you generally have some of that low frequency EMF coming off of that. If you're talking about the newer technologies like compact fluorescent or LED, those tend to contribute a fair amount of dirty electricity to your home's wiring system. Now, if you're talking about the motion sensor itself, it is my understanding that that is infrared, which is not a very widely studied area of EMF exposure, because people have asked me about this before and I've looked into it. It is my understanding that these are really, really low powered implementations because just because of how the technology works. But I just haven't been able to find any science on the impacts of infrared motion sensors. Thank you. Jackie asked, do you have a product that is an EMF blocking fabric patch that could be stuck to the inside of your purse that is closest to your body to create a barrier between your body and your cell phone inside your purse? The answer is we used to, and we don't now. That was our pocket patch. It was actually my first product. It came out in 2013. But we no longer make that product. What you could do is use our Flex Shield for that, which I can show that to you here, which is under Home and Office. And then you go here to the Flex Shield. And it's not fabric. I mean, it is fabric, but it's laminated fabric for your protection. And then the back is adhesive. And then you can apply it. And in your case, you would apply it to the inside of your purse instead of a wall. Alternatively, if you just wanted the fabric itself, we have the poster frame liner, which is both the Flex Shield and the poster frame liner are very easily cut products. So you can cut them to any custom size. And actually even much larger than what the pocket patch came in. Okay, good question, anonymous attendee. To what degree does the laptop pad deflect up to the sides of the laptop? Obviously better than going straight to the reproductive organs, but what degree is the spread? So this is, so everything that would have gone down to your lap is then going up. In general, it shouldn't lead to that much more emissions from the sides. There will be some more, but not much more, and the bulk of it will go up through the keyboard to where your hands are. That again, in terms of how much specifically you need to measure for yourself, because every laptop is different and what you're doing with it is different and so forth. But that is how that works, and that's a limitation of that type of shielding product. Thank you. Yeah, you can't shield the top because then you wouldn't be able to use the keyboard, and you wouldn't be able to use the trackpad or whatever mouse-like thing you have built into your computer. So that's just a limitation of how those products can be designed and working. Okay, boy, the questions keep coming in. There's more now than when I started answering them. Okay, JD asks, and I answered this in the chat pod earlier. Thank you for asking again. Are all the compartments of the SYB sling bag shielded, or is the large panel at the back that is shielded for broadest coverage? Yes. So just so everyone sees the product we're talking about, it is this one, the SYB sling bag, which is my personal favorite. I use it whenever I have to leave and go out around town, because not only does it hold my cell phone, but it holds everything else that I tend to bring, like my eyeglass case and a backup battery and things like that. So the answer is, let's see, this is the part of the sling bag. It's actually this plus the sides, right? So it's kind of like a cupped shielding, which gives better protection. So it's the entire back and then the sides are the parts that are shielded. And that means whatever you put in any compartment, right? Because the back of the bag goes between the stuff in the bag and your body. It means whatever you put in any compartment, the shielding will work against. Thank you for your question, JD. Okay. My husband uses a cell phone. Will your SYB product that blocks the EMF going into his body increase the EMFs that are emitted at me when I am near him? So this is a really good question. When you use, and I should have had a pouch handy here, but give me 1 second. I have one here. My SYB bags got intertwined. Okay, so let's say this is the Pouch Deluxe, okay, which is the newest version of the pouch, which is, I really like this product too. I use this and the sling bag. I mean, not at the same time. It depends how much stuff I need to carry with me. So if you put your phone in the Pouch Deluxe, right, and your husband in this case puts the phone in the Pouch Deluxe, and then he's holding it against his body, right, the radiation from the phone is being shielded on the back. So it's deflecting away from your husband. Now, if you are standing near him, does that mean that more is coming out of the front? Yes, it does mean that more is coming out of the front. Also, though, remember I don't know if you were here for this part of the presentation, but the power of EMF radiation diminishes exponentially with distance here. So it was this slide that I'm talking about, right? So as your husband is being protected against the maximum possible dose that phone has because it's right up against his body. As it starts going further away, the amount of radiation is diminishing quite rapidly. And so the answer is yes, more radiation comes out of the front, but then it dissipates very rapidly, again, exponentially with distance. But great question. Thank you for asking it. Okay, can I put a link to the headset I mentioned? Yes, I can. So that is under headsets. And I was talking about the Hard, which is this one. And there we go. It's now in the chat pod. So this is the headset anti-radiation device. It does not work on the current generation of iPhones. It will work on the next generation of iPhones. But other than that, it works on every device, whether it has what this is called a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack or USB-C, because it comes with an adapter. And so that means it works on all Androids, on all laptops. It also works on every other Apple product except the iPhone. So that would include the iPad and the MacBook. It works on the Nintendo Switch and so forth. So thank you. Melissa asked, do we ship to New Zealand? The answer is yes. We ship to everywhere in the world. We don't offer free shipping. So our free shipping policy is over $100. It's free shipping within North America and Europe. And that's because that's where our warehouses are. And it's not just free shipping, it's also no import duties, because again, we're shipping from within these countries. But we also offer shipping to the rest of the world. And you can see, if you go to the footer on any one of my pages, I'm not on the correct monitor. I apologize about that. Did I close the browser? I did. Okay, let me pull this over. So if you go to the footer on any one of my web pages and you click shipping information, you can see what the shipping charges are to up here is North America and Europe, and then here we have the rest of the world. Thank you for that question, Melissa. Okay. Can the air tubes be used with the SYB Hard device or only with standard headsets? The answer is it can be. I don't know particularly why you would. If you're using the hard, you shouldn't need the air tubes. But the answer to your question is yes. So because we have two separate types of headset products. Um, and these are the air tubes, and this is the hard. And so the answer is yes, you can plug the air tubes into the hard if you wanted to. But the hard on its own will perform the same function. Thank you. Okay. So I see people talking about blue light blocking clip-ons. Doesn't the blue light blocker coating on my glasses take care of the eyes? Great question. The answer is possibly. I mean, if you have a coating, again, so what we're talking about here is this product, which are clip-on blue lights that are designed to go over any pair of prescription glasses. If your glasses come with blue light coating, then they should be providing you some degree of blue light protection. How much, I can't say. You would need to check your documentation or ask the lens manufacturer to find out how much. Ours block 35% of blue light, which is, to my understanding, the most that you can block with clear lenses. Thank you. Petrusa asked if we ship to South Africa for smaller products below $100. And Stephanie, you can jump in if I'm wrong here. My understanding is we do ship to South Africa. It's just, again, international shipping. We're currently charging $30 flat rate per order, regardless of how much you are ordering. So for smaller orders, it may not make sense, but we definitely offer that service. Rob asked, does the NCB unit, Andrew McAfee, have independent lab analysis? Great question. The answer there is no. And the reason is, and I can tell you exactly why, because I've been involved in this. No lab offers the kind of testing to demonstrate the efficacy of the product claims that the NCB has. So what we do instead, and that is a really great question, Rob. What we do instead is we offer a step-by-step guide to how you can verify the equipment that you need and how you can verify the performance for yourself. So we have that for the NCB and we have it for the NCB Pro. Let me paste those links into chat so so you can see the links that I'm talking about. Great question. We've been talking to multiple labs trying to figure out a protocol. I'm not going to go into detail here on that. I gave you the summary answer. We do talk about this in Andrew and I in an NCB webinar, also available. You can watch on our website. Thank you. Okay, about the frame liners, won't the smart meter radiation just go around the frame and still get through your walls? So we have, give me a second. I'm trying to load. Of course, my connection is slow, right? When I'm trying. So I thought we had a diagram here. Yes. So light is a form of EMF. So EMF travels the same way light travels, right? So if you need something to visualize, and let me put this link in the chat pod. This is shieldyourbody.com/waves travel. And you can see, right? So the answer is it won't go around it, but it is true that you only get protection on the area that is, I thought we had more graphics on this article. Here we go. So this is an example. So certain emissions would depending on the relative size of the poster frame liner and the source of the EMF that you are shielding against, it is possible that some is not blocked, but it doesn't go around it. It just gets through the unshielded part of your wall, in which case, if that's happening, you'd want additional poster frame liners. I hope that answered that question. I feel like I stumbled a little. I apologize. How do I shield a wall that faces my neighbor's smart meter? So the poster frame liner is the product that we have for that, which again is here. It's under home and office. And it's this product, which I will put into the chat pod. And this link that I just shared a minute ago, the Waves travel link, that explains how you would use it in that use case. Wow, so many questions. Okay. I cannot sleep with Wi-Fi. I have my computer hardwired and I don't use Wi-Fi regularly. What to do about the 11 Wi-Fi sources that show up on my phone? So, Sue, that is a great question, right? Because tonight's entire webinar is all about protecting yourself from sources of EMF that you can control, but there are a growing number of sources that you can't control. You can't go into your 11 neighbors' apartments or whatever it is and force them to turn off their Wi-Fi, just like you can't go outside and force T-Mobile to turn off their antenna. So the only things I'll start here under Faraday canopies. This is the product that we make that is designed specifically to help people like you who need to shield their bed against sources that they cannot control. Obviously, the best solution, though I realize it is highly impractical, is to move to an area that has a much lower population, because the less densely populated an area is, the less of this stuff that will be around. So for instance, in where I live, I can occasionally pick up one Wi-Fi network from a neighbor, and that's it. But when I go to a city and I stay in a hotel, I see 30 or 40, right? And, that might be an extreme example, although increasingly in my experience, it is not an extreme example in cities. But the less populated an area you live, generally the way fewer sources of EMF that there will be there, such as Wi-Fi. But if you're still living in the city or in a place that with a lot of these things and you can't move, the canopies are the product that we have that would help protect against that. And I'll put that link into the chat pod. Thank you. Jilly says, hi, Melissa, I have those glasses on now, recommend. Excellent, thank you very much, Jilly. Okay. If I keep my computer on a table, not on my lap, and place a shield under my laptop, will it protect me? I also have a shield sheet opposite my laptop on the wall. Okay, so in general, it's okay. So the answer there is it depends. In general, if you're using your laptop on the desk, it's not critical, right? The laptop pad is really designed for people who are using it on their lap. Though sometimes, if I'm traveling, right? Because in real life, you can see how far away my laptop is from where I'm sitting. So in real life, like where I sit and work all the time, my laptop is pretty far away from me, and I have an external wired keyboard and stuff like that. But when I'm traveling, like I'm staying in a hotel, I don't have an external keyboard. I have my laptop like at the edge of the table, and my legs and lap are under the table. And then I will actually use my laptop pad, but it's not as critical as when the laptop is in your lap. Again, in that the difference is there, right? Because at home I was saying I don't use a laptop pad. That's because the laptop is so far away from me. But in the example of the hotel, the laptop is not directly in my lap, but it's directly over my lap because of how I sit. And that's a case in which I would use the laptop pad. There is one other. Yes. Here's an older webinar that I did. I'm going to paste the link into the chat pod. That is a webinar I did on laptop health risk. And I go into details there about the health risks from laptops and computers and how and when and where the laptop pad actually adds value and when it doesn't. Thank you. Sue says she already uses airplane mode for phone at night. Great. There's something That's great. From an EMF perspective, that's great. When you put your phone in airplane mode, you're killing the emissions, which is great. But I assume this is in reference to sleeping with your phone. And there is, I talk about this in some interviews. There is actually science showing that sleeping when your phone, not only in airplane mode, but even fully powered off, is harmful to the quality of your sleep. And this has to do with our relationship with our psychological relationship with our phone and the physiological expectation of rewards from that device. Again, even if it's totally off and there's no emissions, there's no chance of it ringing, there's none, it's still harmful to your sleep. And I'll give you an example that I've tried and that demonstrates it very clearly for me. When I am watching, generally Netflix is the service that I have. When I'm watching Netflix, I feel like I can focus on the show way better when my phone isn't anywhere within sight. I'm not talking about scrolling on my phone. Obviously, that's going to distract. I'm talking about if the phone is up on the TV stand and I can see it, it's distracting. It's degrading the quality of my experience of watching the show. Don't take my word for it. Try it yourselves. If you see that not being able to see your phone is improving your ability to enjoy your video content, then you'll also see why it's important to keep the phone out of your room, even when it's powered off. But yeah, try it for yourself. See if that works. Can you please discuss the best option for reducing RF EMF exposure with broadband routers? So we do have a product for that. It's currently out of stock. I talked about it in the webinar. It's out of stock because we have a whole new version coming really, really soon. But the picture frame, so you can see here how you can use it to deflect radiation away. And so the key issue here is that you need EMF from Wi-Fi in order for the Wi-Fi to work. But you don't need as much of it as these routers give you. They are very overpowered devices. And so a product like the picture frame is designed to block a chunk of that radiation in the other direction. So it doesn't eliminate the exposure, but it blocks a chunk of it in the other direction, away from where you are sitting or sleeping or spending your time. Also keep in mind, turning it off at night is a really, really good tip. I interviewed one human optimization guy. I mean, if you saw him on my podcast, the Healthier Tech podcast, and he runs he runs a digital detox retreat, which is, it's not just digital detox, but it's a whole health and wellness retreat of which digital detox is a part. And he said when he started learning about EMF and he started turning his Wi-Fi router off at night, he was able to measure with his Aura Ring, which is one of these health trackers that a lot of human optimization people use. He was able to measure 15 minutes more of deep sleep every night. So he was able to actually measure, starting on the first night, the physiological impact of on his sleep of just turning his Wi-Fi off at night. So that is what I would recommend. Turning off the Wi-Fi whenever you don't need it is kind of what I'm saying. So thank you, Jilly. Okay. Do newer vehicles have sources of EMF? Oh boy, do they. Yes. Rather than go into, let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so while I'm looking here, the answer is yes, a lot, because it depends on what type of car, right? So, but electric cars will have EMF that traditional combustion, conventional engine cars didn't have. Hybrid cars are actually worse in general than electric cars because of the inverter, like I was talking about with the solar panel system. But that's just the engine, right? So a lot of cars now have multiple sources of Bluetooth. I rented a car last year and I figured, okay, let me see, because I never use Bluetooth, but I rented a car and I want to see what, I forget what it's called, the Android CarPlay or Google CarPlay, whatever it was. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because when I did it, it forced on the Wi-Fi on my phone to improve the connection between the car. And so even though I was just trying to use Bluetooth to test out this system, it forced on Wi-Fi. And then there's all these other things, LiDAR, all of these. So again, it depends on the car. But I will put you, give me 1 second. Here we go. This is a presentation that Virginians for Safe Technology gave recently. And they cite actually some SYB materials that Kathy put together for us. But if you jump here, so it's about 20 minutes in, you'll see this talk. And let me put this link into the chat pod so you can see it. And this talks about all the various sources of EMF in a car, and it's just unbelievable. It's not an old car. I guess now it's 5 years old, but it's a super low tech car. It had the only EMF it had really was the Bluetooth radio. And my car was broken into and they stole the radio. And I waited like half a year before replacing it. And then when we replaced it, we actually paid extra to get a radio without Bluetooth on it. But that's just, that's me. But it's really hard, increasingly hard to find cars with very low EMF. How to shield the OmniShield fire alarm system, continuous radio frequency scanning the whole house. That sounds hard. That sounds like one of those things that would be really hard to shield against without, turning it off is really the only thing that occurs to me. I wish I had a better answer for you, May, but that's all I can think of. A lot of these devices just require, so a lot of people try to follow my advice to turn off the Wi-Fi at night, and then they'll tell me that their home alarm system needs Wi-Fi to work. And there's just no way. If they turn off their Wi-Fi, they don't have security. And it's because of the way all of these technologies are being designed to work without any regard for your EMF exposure. So I wish I had a better answer for you, May, but my answer is I don't know how you could shield against that. How about a battery-operated keyboard and mouse? Why would it need to be battery operated? If it's battery operated, I'm assuming it's wireless. And if it's wireless, I would say don't use it. I use, can I lift this up without get it into the photo? So here's my trackball. You can see it's wired. And can I lift up and here's my keyboard. You can see it's wired. That's what I would recommend because battery operated, a wireless keyboard and mouse, that's two more sources of Bluetooth that you have. Then you also have to have Bluetooth on the computer. And so that's three sources of Bluetooth that you just don't need. Now, again, think about, a wireless keyboard on its own might not be like the worst thing in the world. But again, I just gave you the example. It's not just on its own. That actually turns out to three different sources. And remember, this is additive to all the other sources of exposure that you are getting throughout the day. So I say cut out the ones that you can cut out. It doesn't cost me any functionality to use a wired keyboard instead of a wireless keyboard, right? So I'm not losing any value by doing that, and I'm cutting out those exposures. That's how I recommend approaching these sorts of questions. Wow, so many questions. There's still more than when I started. Okay. What kind of EMF is absorbed through the regular Apple headphones or other ones? Does the EMF funnel through the ear hole, through the blood-brain barrier to part of the brain? Okay, regular Apple headphones. Not sure what you mean, if you mean wired or wireless, but I'll say if by regular you mean wired, that's what I was talking about earlier, which is it's much, much safer to use wired headphones than wireless headphones. So Unless you're, so I just don't want to say anything that would discourage you from using wired headphones. At the same time, wired headphones do conduct a bit of the stray radiation from your phone up the wire, um, into the ear canal. Yes, EMF penetrates the blood-brain barrier. Yes, EMF reaches the brain. Again, this is like a fraction of the EMF, though. Just so we can kind of put a scope on this, it's a fraction of the EMF that you would get when compared to putting like AirPods in your ear. But that is why, and I think you can see it in the video, that's why I use the hard. In this case, it's not for a phone, it's all connected to my computer, but at least it's getting the filtration of those stray forces off of the cable. So that is my answer. Thank you. Marilyn asks, I'm needing hearing aids and a bit afraid of that exposure as already ES from an overexposure. Any suggestions? I think Stephanie posted that. Give me a, I know she, okay, let me find it. I'm pretty sure she posted that, but here we go. Here is the link. Unfortunately, it's another example. It's getting really hard to find hearing aids that don't have EMF. That even if they do have EMF, that would allow you to disable like the Bluetooth that comes in. This is the link. I'm putting it into the chat of the article that I just listed. There are some products. We list a couple of them in here. They're not as effective, right? Because they're not true hearing aids. I don't remember the distinction. They're kinds of hearing aids, but they're not as good as the ones that you would get at the doctor. But there are some options that you can find that don't emit EMF, that don't have Bluetooth on them. So I would recommend doing that, especially if you're electrosensitive. Okay, Jackie asks, if we were interested in getting our own meter to test at home, which do you recommend as most accurate and affordable? Okay, so I don't recommend just one meter. I actually recommend multiple meters. So you can choose which you would want. And it's you can get it here. It's in a free guide that not only recommends the meters, but explains how to use them and how to understand the readings you get. You just scroll down to this feature download, enter your email address, and you'll be emailed the guide, which is, I think this image is actually a little old. I think it's in its 7th edition now, not its 6th edition. It's a really good guide. It's actually probably the favorite one that I've written. Is aluminum foil over wireless phone bases and or computer modems helpful? It could be. Tin foil is, it is a form of EMF shielding. So the thing is you want to make sure not to fully wrap these things. That's why none of my electronics accessories, like that's why on the Pouch Deluxe, just as one example, only the back and flap is shielded, right? Because if you fully wrap it, you're going to force these devices to work harder and emit more radiation, which can then penetrate. The point is it can lead them to overheat. It could actually lead your exposure to increase. So you don't want to fully wrap it. So that you can test it out, and then you can also learn how to buy a decent meter and test it and see if you are actually getting a reduction. Yeah, go for it. I don't understand what Anonymous is asking there, so I'm going to dismiss it. Anonymous, this is good. I don't have an answer, but this is good. May I ask where one can expect EMF is highest on a train like an Amtrak car or a subway car? Near the conductor, I'd imagine, is highest, but any insights and any products that you could sell to protect in these cases? I have no idea. I don't know why it would. It could be possible. This is a great example of why getting a decent meter and learning how to test is so valuable. because that's really the way that you would be able to find out where the highest exposures are, where the highest emissions are, places to avoid. In terms of protection, that's an example of just what, for lack of a better term, is out in the wild. When you're out in the wild, when you send your child to school and there's all this Wi-Fi at school, or when you're walking down the street and there are all these cell antennas, the only type of protection that works in those types of situations is apparel. And so the apparel works. It doesn't protect your whole body. It protects the part of the body that it is covering. So we have a bunch of apparel options. And that's really the only way to protect yourself when you're out in the wild, against sources that you cannot control, and when you're not at home and you can't put shielding up in your home. When you say the hard does not work on the current iPhone, do you also mean it doesn't work for any older model of iPhone? Not any. It's any model of iPhone with the Lightning port. It looks like the Lightning port is Apple's. I don't have any Lightning devices here, so I can't show you. But the iPhones have a Lightning port, and the hard doesn't work with Lightning. The reason it's going to work on the next version of iPhone is because the next version of iPhone is going to have USB-C. The European Parliament forced them to give up the Lightning port. But I forget which version of the iPhone they introduced Lightning on. It's been around for several versions though. So if you have an iPhone right now, you probably have a Lightning port. What about holding iPad or Kindle or handheld in lap? So that is a product. Again, it's best if you don't hold it in your lap is the answer. Just like with laptops, they tend to be lower emissions than laptops, at least on the low frequency stuff. They use less power, so they're emitting less of the low frequency EMF. They're emitting probably the same amount of radio frequency EMF as a laptop. But where were we? Here we go. So we have the tablet pad, which is basically a smaller version of the laptop pad. And this is the product that I would recommend for using an iPad or a Kindle. By the way, I use a Kindle, and I only use it in airplane mode. Unless I'm actively going to download books, it is always in airplane mode. And then I'm not too worried about it. Actually, I'm not worried about it at all. But when it is in airplane mode, when it's not in airplane mode and I'm using it to download new books, I don't keep it in my lap. But if you did, this would be the product for you, the SYB tablet pad. Thank you. Okay. When a symptom appears, how does one know if it is caused by EMF or pesticides in our food or air pollution or etc.? Great question. A lot of times you don't. The way, there's a couple of ways to approach answering this. The way to find out, or at least to try to find out, is to eliminate the biggest sources of EMF in your life. For instance, go out to a cabin in the woods or a small town, whatever. Get away from your high EMF environment for a couple of days. Do the symptoms abate? If they do, that might be a good sign that it's EMF. But the other answer to your question, pardon me, is that these toxins can create cross susceptibilities, right? So, for instance, people with heavy metal poisoning or multiple chemical sensitivity are more likely to be EHS, electrosensitive, and so it's not about. Sometimes it's about which toxin causes which effect. But a lot of times when you're talking about health issues, it's about your overall toxic load. And if you can make different reductions in any of your toxin exposures, you're going to be doing your health a favor. That was a good question. It deserves a longer discussion, but I still somehow have more questions than when we started. Does SYB sell RF blocking curtains? The answer is no, JD, but thank you for asking. Is there a wall paint that shields against EMF? Yes. The one that is most recommended is called, well, you know what I'm going to do? is I'm going to put it in, I'm going to put this link in rather than talk about the paint in the webinar, Tish. I'm going to give you a link to this article which talks about the paint and how to think about using it. Because once you start implementing this, what I call whole home EMF shielding or whole room EMF shielding, there are a lot of considerations to make sure that you're getting it right. But thank you for the question. I hope you got that link. It's in the chat pod. So someone asked, can you talk about the difference of using regular headphones with ferrite beads relative to the air tube? I am not aware of any science on ferrite beads. I know that people talk about them and use them. If they work for you, great. I'm not aware of any science on their function or performance, and we only work with products that not only are lab tested but are testable. And so, but I appreciate the question. It's not the first time I've gotten it. And again, if it works for you, continue using it. No need to switch off to another type of protection product. Someone asks, how far away from the laptop do I sit? So I didn't measure it. I mean, this has got to be, what is that, 2 feet? I think I'm 2 feet away from my laptop. I have limits because I still use my laptop monitor and my eyes ain't what they used to be. I don't even have my laptop on the highest resolution anymore. I had to make it bigger for my eyes. But 2 feet is actually at the far end of the desk that I'm using. If I push the laptop back any further, I'd have more trouble seeing it, and it would also fall off the desk. So that's how far away I use it. But I say as far away as you can. I mean, but once you get it like away from your immediate vicinity, you've done a lot of the work already. If Wi-Fi and cellular data is available when using a phone, would I be subjected to less radiation using one over the other? So in general, there's too many variables to give a flat answer to that. I can tell you what I personally do, which is I always use Wi-Fi instead of cell data when possible. That's because in general, cell towers are located further away, and your phone is going to have to work harder to get the signal out to connect with that tower. But I don't know for sure that has been proven. So I use Wi-Fi calling and Wi-Fi for data, and I recommend that people do. But I don't think there is a universal answer there that's true for all instances. Thank you for the question. Can I safely put my external keyboard on my lap or without emit EMF too? Anne asks. So Anne, if it's a wireless keyboard, I highly recommend against it. If it's a wired keyboard, it's safer. There's still risks of EMF exposure, right? Because just like your headphones can conduct radiation from your phone to your ear, keyboards can do the same thing. So a wired keyboard is definitely safer to use in your lap than a wireless keyboard, but it is not without its own EMF concerns. So I use I don't keep the keyboard that far away from me, obviously, because I need to type on it. But I don't use it in my lap. It's on my desk. But good question. Oh, you know what? I think Stephanie. Where is the office webinar? Stephanie, did you have that office webinar link? Here we go. Here's a good link. I found it. And I'm putting it into chat. Kathy gave this webinar a while back, actually, but she goes into depth about key issues with keyboards in this webinar. So I just pasted that link into the chat pod. My son has a blanket to shield him when he's sleeping in a hotel with Wi-Fi. Do you make this? We do not make an adult-sized blanket. We make a baby blanket, which a lot of people use when flying, but we do not make an adult-sized blanket for sleeping. If your son is using a blanket to shield him when he's sleeping in a hotel with Wi-Fi, make sure he knows to put a layer under him as well, right? Because if you're just putting the shielding on top, that could, if there's sources of radiation coming from beneath the bed, meaning like the floor below, and the shielding is on top of your son, it could deflect more radiation back down through his body, right? So if you're going to do that type of shielding, make sure it's on both sides of, I don't even know what this means, but on both sides of the body, on the top and on bottom. You want to be fully wrapped for that type of shielding. So, and we do offer the baby blanket, which is also, it's under the for babies category. And you can see it comes in 5 colors and patterns. And it's a really good size, but again, not for an adult to sleep. Thank you. Is there not quite a bit of radiation coming from the sides or back of a laptop, depending on the computer? I mean, the thing is, it tends to go in every direction. Now, where it's greatest will depend on the specific type of laptop you are using. Also what's enabled, right? So if you have Bluetooth off versus Bluetooth on, if it's plugged into the wall or just running on battery, and a number of other variables. So I can't say blanket where the highest, which direction the highest emissions go in. I don't think there is that rule because of all those variables. But thank you. If my computer is hardwired, does the laptop pad shield magnetic from battery? Yes. And the lab testing, do I still have that? No, I do not. If you go to the testing menu on my website and go to laboratory test results, and then you scroll down, it's this one, platinum steel, safer body platinum steel, and you can download the test report. You'll see it has magnetic shield. It's been laboratory tested against magnetic ELF. There you go, is the link. But thank you for the question, JD. Dr. Klinghardt has shown sensitivity in some patients even when the phone is off and several feet away or outside the room. Wow, I was not aware of that. I don't know what type of sensitivity you're, if you're talking about electrosensitivity or some other type of sensitivity. I'd be interested in learning about that, Victoria. If you could email that information to hello@shieldyourbody.com, that'll get forwarded to me, and I would like to look at that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, do hearing aids put radiation in your brain? So Marty asked this. I believe I answered this already, and I'll just paste the link if I can find it. Yes, here it is. Come on, it's just up a little bit in the chat pod. It's not letting me. Okay, now I'm copying and I'm putting the link back in again. There you go. Thank you, Marty. Does putting your router in a Faraday cage help cut radiation? If the Faraday cage works, it will certainly cut radiation. It will also stop you from having Wi-Fi. So if that's what you want, I say turn off your router. The goal, if you're using Wi-Fi, the goal is to minimize the EMF that you're exposed to from it. You can't eliminate it, because if you eliminate it, you don't have Wi-Fi anymore. Thank you. My alarm company was able to use a wired home phone to work instead of Wi-Fi. Sue, that's great. A lot of alarm companies won't do that anymore. So that's great that yours did. I mean, a lot of people don't have landlines anymore, which is why it doesn't make business sense for a lot of these companies to support it. But landlines, I remember when I was growing up, you wanted it to connect to a landline because you don't lose landlines in a blackout. The phones always work unless there's something horrible going on, like a hurricane destroys the phone poles or something. But in a blackout, you're going to lose Wi-Fi, but you're not going to lose a landline. But thank you, Sue. Okay. Uh, John asks, is there any radiation surrounding CPAP machine for sleep apneas? And if so, how do I protect myself? The answer is yes. I don't know offhand how much. If you, Kathy talked about this in, here we go, in this webinar that Stephanie pasted in the chat a little bit earlier. So I'm pretty sure it came up in this webinar about bedroom EMF. There's, I would say, don't worry about shielding yourself against it. What you could do, if possible, is get a longer, I don't know if you call it a hose. I apologize for not knowing the correct terminology, but the hose, right? Because the part that emits EMF is that whole base motor thingy. And it's not like the face mask. So if you can get a longer hose to run to your face, then you can keep the machine further away, and then you'll be really making a difference. But again, there's certain exposures that are worth it. A CPAP is an important piece of technology for people who need it. And do what you can to minimize it, but don't stress it, right? If you need that tech, use it as safely as you can, but then use it as without worry and focus your EMF mitigation efforts elsewhere. That is my opinion. But thank you for the question, John. Okay. Oh, wow. We are approaching the end of the list. How do I protect myself from the OBD transmitter that is in my car to monitor mileage for insurance purposes? Oh, wow. I had one of those once. This was before I started SYB. It was before I was really so this must have been like 13 years ago. And there's no way really to do that because those need to be able to communicate with they're like a cell phone. So there's no real way to do that, Malika. There's no real way to protect yourself from it. I again wish I had better answers. There's certain use cases you can't protect against. So I ended up getting rid of, once I started learning and thinking more about EMF, and I was working on Overpowered with my father. I got rid of in my case, it was an insurance company to remotely monitor how safely you were driving, and I just got rid of it because it gave me discounts on my insurance, and I was like, forget this. I have your EMF pouch. If I want to buy an EMF repelling phone case for my iPhone that's protected on all sides to place in the pouch, I found a product, but my concern is when I fold the flap while on a call, that my hand will literally absorb all of the radiation deflecting from the outside flap to the backside of the case. So Anonymous asked this question. Give me a second. I know phone cases, they're an incredibly popular product. If I made them, I'm sure I would sell a lot of them. And I don't make them. And the reason I don't make them is because I don't believe in them. And it's not because they don't work, but because of issues like you are getting at in your question, which is there are all these edge case use cases that are actually, with the phone case, very common. And it's very easy. And so here, I have an article, I'm going to put it in the chat pod, that I've written to explain why I don't make a case. And because I don't make them, the same reason I don't make them is the reason I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for people. So that would be my response there, but thank you. So are there houseplants people can place in their homes that are thought to be or shown to lower net EMF absorption? Okay, the answer there is there's what's the word? Not rumors. Well, kind of rumors. People say there are houseplants that absorb EMF, and they say it's based off of NASA studies, but neither Kathy nor I have been able to find those NASA studies. So I don't believe it, given what I know. Okay, but if you search online, you'll be able to see articles that say houseplants do help. And if you find the science to support those statements, please email them to hello@shieldyourbody.com because I want to see them. Okay, but the question goes on. What herbs can we consume or apply to protect against EMF absorption? There's nothing you can do to protect against absorption, but there is stuff you can do to protect against the impacts of EMF. And Kathy gets into that in this webinar archive that I just pasted into the chat, and we get into in the article. So I just pasted 2 links into the chat. And Kathy talks a lot about which types of particularly antioxidants, but which foods, which herbs and spices you can use to get healthy doses of this stuff and the impact that it has. Thank you for the question. Jilly asks if I know about blue light dangers of new headlights. I do not. I do know that I hate them. I have to look away. Like, I was taught this trick. Maybe a lot of people know it. I don't know. But when I was learning how to drive back in the last millennium, you could. My instructor taught me to look down at the paint on the shoulder. So if a car is coming at me with headlights that I find distracting and painful and obnoxious, I look down at the paint on the shoulder, on the right shoulder, and that's how I deal with it. Because I find them dangerous. I don't know how those got allowed onto they are so much brighter than the older generation headlights. But I'm not aware of any blue light risks from that in particular. I have a phone case with a pretty strong magnet set up to attach the phone. Is that causing a harmful magnetic field? I don't know, Victoria, your case. I don't believe that magnets should be something that you worry about. So if your phone attaches to the case with a magnet, I don't think that that's something that you need to worry about. And I haven't seen any science showing that that should be something that you're worried about. I do know people ask us about this a lot. Because, for instance, the flap on the Pouch Deluxe has magnets, and that's for convenience and ease of use. And so we get questions about this. And so I've talked to experts about this, and no one has been able to point me to any science showing that that would be a source of concern. Okay. Wow. We did it, people. And there are still a lot of you, almost 100 in the room, even though it's been 90 minutes. Wow, I answered 53 questions. Whew, that's a really great turnout, guys. I appreciate you so much for coming out today and for sticking around this long and for asking all these great questions. A reminder, last reminder, it's up on your screen now, but the 25% off sale is just through midnight tonight. It's just for those of you who are here watching this live. The replay link will go out tomorrow, but the sale ends at midnight tonight. So use the code BEST25 at checkout to save 25% on your order. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you at the next webinar.